Hi everyone, this is Evelyn. I just wanted to show you a tutorial on how to do an altered mini canvas. This is the one for the swap that is coming up in September. It's really simple, just takes a little bit of time, but ends up with beautiful results. So let's get started. Okay, I have a brand new canvas here. It was a 4x4, not a 44x44. And you can get these at Joann's, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, and they're always on sale. So, you know, I always grab a bunch of them just because I use them a lot. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is when I work with canvas, I always use gesso on it. The gesso just prepares the surface for other mediums to put on it. So I'm going to squirt a little bit of gesso, and you can get gesso in all sorts of containers. There's tubes, there's jars. It depends on the store that you go to. So we're just going to take a dry brush, and we're going to go cover the entire canvas. The gesso dries pretty fast, so by the time I get done applying it, it'll be ready to go. You don't have to be neat about it or anything, just make sure you get all of the surface covered. Mixed media is probably one of my favorite pieces of crafting to do because it's fun. You just can do anything you want and there's no rules. Okay, so I'm going to take my heat tool. I'm going to dry my gloves so I don't get it all over my heat tool. And I'm going to help it along here. Just make sure that the gesso is dry before you start doing anything else. It'll get really smeary and not give you the results that you are looking for. So take the time and make sure it's dry. Okay, it's just got a little bit more here. I can see some wet places. You wonder why you're going to dry it and then get it wet again. Okay, alright, I'm going to take and wipe up my gesso so I don't get it in everything else. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of paper. I just pulled it out of a book that wasn't any good anymore, and that's what I'm going to use to get my print on there. I'm going to rinse out my brush here while I'm talking. And you can, use any book. Just get something that has some writing on it. If you don't have a book handy and got a rubber stamp with script writing on it, by all means, go for it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get, I use a multi-medium, it's a gloss that works real well when I'm applying anything like tissue or paper. And by the way, if you got tissue or anything like that will work, just so it has some writing on it. Okay, now this time I want to make sure that all the surfaces are covered real well with the gloss, because that's going to hold my paper onto the canvas. Okay, so I'm going to lay that down, and then I'm just going to lay my paper where I want it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim around it just to make it easier for me to work with. Okay? And another thing I found that really helps when I'm putting tissue on a square piece is go ahead and cut the corners diagonally. Cut just like you were going to miter it, and essentially that's what we're going to do, is miter it. So I'm going to cut off all 4 corners, get that rolling for me. Then I want to go ahead and I want to apply some more gloss onto the sides and the paper, and you can be very generous with this, because the better you get it stuck on, the less chance you'll have of it popping up on you, and you don't want that after all the work you did. So then you just want to fold the edges over, and you see I'm using gloves. You're not going to believe this, but I don't like to get my hands dirty, and so I just use gloves a lot. So sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to wipe my surface down a little bit, rinse my brush. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to start getting ready to apply some paint. The colors I chose were the distress paints from Tim Holtz, and I'll list all the supplies that we need in the video, so you can have an idea what we're going to be using. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to use the light color. I chose two blues, and I want to get two colors on here. And oh, before I do that though, I want to apply gesso again. I almost made a goof here. I knew I had a reason for that gesso being out there. The reason I'm using gesso again is to lighten up this paper so it looks a little bit distressed here. Okay, and do it on the sides. I've got some writing on the sides. Now remember, I told you on our Facebook page that you don't have to have the full canvas pieces. You can use the flat canvas. So you know, this one here has the insides of it, and you know, it's no big deal. Whichever one you want to use for the swap will certainly be fine. You'll get the same results. Okay, now we're ready to get our paint, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip into my paint, brush a little to the side, and then get my surface covered with the light blue. And I'm just being a little sporadic with it. I'm not really trying to miss or hit anything. And I do want to get my sides done. And again, if you don't have the sides on it, don't worry about it. You'll do just fine. Okay, now here's the fun part. I'm going to take a darker blue, and I'm going to use that to kind of give it some shading. Okay, and what I'm going to do before that is I'm going to get this dry a little bit so I don't run into any trouble. Okay, so now I'm ready for the dark blue, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with the light blue. Dip into it, get a little bit off the side of it, and just brush lightly just to get yourself some shading. I'm not trying to get any specific look other than some darkness around the edge. Lightly touch over the sides if you have sides, and that will make everything look like it's fallen together. Okay, alright, so we have that done. I'm going to wipe all of this up, and because I'll have a mess here in a minute if I don't. Okay, so then after we get that done, we're ready to do some fun work with stenciling. Mixed media is just simply a process of using different mediums to get your artwork done. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take and I'm going to use, I used silver on my original piece, and this time I'm going to use white. It's a white texture paste from Martha Stewart. Oops, which way? There we go. And it's really, really a good medium to work with. I enjoy it a lot. You can see in the container it's got almost like a grout look to it. Okay, now the next thing, and by the way, if you don't have any texture paste, don't go out and buy it. If your husband is handy around the house, he probably has some spackling compound that they use on drywall, and that works just as good. So don't go out and buy a bunch of stuff if you don't have to. I was using it a lot from my husband, and he swore he was going to go get me one of those big 5-gallon buckets of it because I use so much. But we haven't done that yet. So anyway, let's go ahead and apply the stucco to the artwork here. And what I want to do is I want to kind of get the edges a little bit neatened up here. So I'm just going to take my spatula and kind of clean up the edges a little bit. Nothing perfect, just enough to kind of make me happy. Okay? Alright, so that looks pretty good. I like that. Okay, whoops, I'm out of frame there. Sorry guys. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move around again, and I'm going to apply some more of my texture paste. By the way, Barb can get you this stuff real easy. She got me my supply, so just email Barb and she'll be glad to help you out. Okay, now just make sure when you're pulling the texture off that you have enough paste in there to achieve what you're looking for. That's good. That's real good. I don't even want to mess with that. Well, I might take one of these squares out right here. Just kind of, I don't want it to look planned. I just want to make it look like I intentionally did what I did. Okay, so then I want to cover my sides a little bit, so I'm just going to put a little more texture paste on here. Nothing big, just a little few spots there to make it look like it's all going together there. Alright, now when you're doing your stenciling and you should have a little pan of water for your stencils so they're easier to clean, because it is a mess when you leave it on there. So I'm going to squirt some water on here. I left my pan in the kitchen, so I won't stop to go get it. Just keep going. But you get the main stuff off, and I'm just funny about my stencils. I like them to look nice and neat and clean. I see some people that, you know, they don't care. They just put it on there. And so, you know, you do what you like, and I'll keep washing mine. Okay, so let's get the spatula cleaned off, so we'll need it later. Okay. Alright, it takes just a little bit for the texture paste to dry, so what we're going to do is we're going to take and get a couple of stamping images, and I chose a flower and a leaf as you saw on the original, and I need to go ahead and get that stamped, and we're going to do some more work with paint. So we're going to get our image. We're going to stamp our image twice, and because we're going to cut it out. So I want to get it on there. That's a good stamp. Alright, and here's the second one. And then we're not going to stamp the leaves because we're going to stamp it directly onto the canvas. So what we're going to do now is really fun. I chose a green and a yellow to dress up my flower, and this time, instead of doing it all one shade, well, I better stick to my shading because I want to show you the shading. So we're going to go ahead and take our paint, and we're going to just paint it on there. Don't worry about being neat or anything like that. Just get it on there. And it'll look real good. I like the distress paints, obviously, because of the way we can use water to thin it down. Okay, now that looks like a mess, doesn't it? But it will straighten up shortly. Okay, for those of you that are joining our swap, we're looking forward to seeing your creations. The swap board is still open, so help yourself to just jumping in there. It's lots of fun. Okay, I'm almost done here. I hope this video is not going to be too long. At least you'll get the idea of what we're looking for in the swap. You can dress it up as much as you want, or you can leave it just plain and simple. It's your artwork that you want to share with the others in the group. Okay, now I'm going to rinse out my brush and get it clean so I can bring in my yellow. Before I do that, I'm going to make sure it's dry because I don't want it to mix. It's so fun doing mixed media because when you start it, you just kind of get more and more creative. You just start doing things that you usually don't do, and it helps you get out of the norm and doing lots of fun creative things. And I think that's what's really crafting is all about. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this out, and this only takes a second to really cut it out, but I love this flower. I think it's really, really pretty, and I keep getting out of frame, I think. But the things that I really enjoy about this is, especially the Tim Holtz Distress Paints, is that there's so many neat colors they're coming out with, and he's really done a job. But I love Tim Holtz, I really do. He is one marvelous man. And talking about things that are going on in the swaps, and we have a lot coming open. Patty's going to be posting some swaps, and we're looking forward to see what she comes up with. And we're looking for a couple of hostesses that would like to join the team. If you're interested, just send me an email, and I'll get right back with you. I've been pretty busy trying to get the website up, and that has really been a challenge. It's been a lot of fun. You're going to see a different look on it already shortly. My goal was initially to get the forum set up so everybody could get used to it, and now we want to go to plan B, and that's to get this form looking pretty. So that's what I'm planning to do. So be on the lookout for that. Okay, now we got them both cut out. Alright, now the next thing we need to do is we're going to take one of the flowers, and it's going to be our bottom, and then the other flower is going to be the top. And you want to cut off 1 or 2 leaves. And I think I'm going to cut off, I think two. Yeah, I think I'll cut off 2 leaves like I did before. And you just go up and around. You know, you don't, depending on what flower you use, and don't be shy about using different images. Try different things. See what you come up with. Okay, so then the next step is to take and get the fibers working a little bit on our side, so it will kind of curl a little bit. And I just take a embossing piece, and some of you have the flower kit. I do have that flower kit with the round balls at the end. I just didn't get it out. Okay, so what we're trying to do is just trying to get a little bit of curl on there, and the curl comes from my hands are in the way, aren't they? The curl comes from the way you use your embossing tool. Okay, so now that's looking good. Okay, we can go ahead and get our yellow paint. The reason I chose the yellow was to give it some brightness, let it kind of peek out a little bit. And I'll use there it is. Okay, and I'm going to brush it on the side and then brush on top. And see, the neat thing is you don't have to be so careful that, you know, you miss out on what the whole technique's about. And so, you know, just paint, do your thing, and move on. Okay? So now I'm trying to fit this and see where it goes. I can't. Let's see. There we go. So then what I'm going to do is go back to my gloss, the multi-medium, and I'm just going to apply a little bit of adhesive just around the inside of the flower so I can attach it, and it'll give some dimension. It's so cool how this works. Okay, and the more you work with trying to get it to curl, the better it gets. Now here's a really fun little thing to do if you want your flower to have some shading, is you take a distress marker and get a color that's a little bit darker than the one that you used, and then just go around the edges and kind of give it some markings. And if you have a color that you just can't seem to get a darker color to give it highlights, use brown. Brown always works when you're trying to get some shading. So try that, and that'll help you. And all I'm doing is I'm just tracing some areas where I see it needs some shading. Okay, I'm not making a real plan here. I just want the edges to look like I've got some shading in there. Okay, and that's all there is to doing that. Easy peasy. Okay, Now this next step is going to take your stamp that you use to make your flower. Like I said, if you want to use something else, feel free to do so. Jump out of there and see what you can do. Okay, and I'm going to stamp it right on here, and I want to really press on here to make sure I get my image in there. That turned out great. Okay, so I'm real happy with that. Alright, so then the next step you want to do is just take your flower, match it up to where it's supposed to lay on here, and when you see it up close, the black edges around it really look cool. They really look nice. So one more step is to glue our flower on with some more multi-medium. That works real well getting it on there. And I don't put it all over the place. I just put it like in the center because I want my edges to still stay rolled up and look like, give it some dimension. Okay, so we got that. And the next thing, or the last thing we're going to do, is just take and get our leaf on here. And I'm just going to put it in, a couple of spots, strategic spots that I think will, give it some nice little. Okay. Alrighty, now the very last thing that we're going to do is we're going to take some green paint and we're going to paint our leaves. You can leave your leaves, or you can fill them in like I'm going to do here. Okay, so let's get our paintbrush and get some green in there. And just lightly cover it, okay? And that's all there is to your altered canvas. Once this dry, you're going to be able to see the honeycomb effect in there. Now remember, when you do your canvases for the swap, you want to make sure that all the pieces that you do are the same. It makes it easier for us as a hostess to separate them and get them in the right piles. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really look forward to seeing a lot of sign-ups on this swap. Thanks, and have a really great day. Oops.